I'm Ryan O'Dowd, and you're listening to Ryan's Audiobooks on the Issues Magazine YouTube channel. Today, we continue with Section 510, Coup D'Etat by Edward Luttwak. We're going to be finishing Chapter 3, The Strategy of the Coup D'Etat. Neutralizing the security agencies. The security agencies of our target country will be numerically the smallest of the professional security agencies of the state, but often also the most dangerous. Unlike the armed forces and the police, the security agencies will be actively trying to identify and defeat threats posed by groups such as ours. Unlike the armed forces and police, their organization's deployment and personnel cannot usually be studied from the outside, and even their existence may not be known to us. Almost every state has some sort of secret service. Many have several such organizations which operate both within and outside the national territory, in which we have so far described with the blanket term of security agencies. Our first task is to try to identify them more precisely. It's well known that the bureaucratic animal in its natural state has certain characteristic patterns of behavior. It grows in size and extends its sphere of action until checked by some outside force. This role is usually played by the financial bureaucracy, which fulfills its instincts by opposing the growth of all other bureaucratic organizations. Equally important as a limiting factor is the concerted pressure of individual bureaucracies, each of which is fighting to preserve and extend its territory. The cumulative effect of these pressures is to limit to some extent the growth of the bureaucracy as a whole, and perhaps without them all of the inhabitants of developed countries would be now employed by the state bureaucracy. These pressures operate weakly or not at all in the case of the security services. Their budgets are allocated by many different departments and are usually secret, so that they cannot easily be known, let alone reduced. Other bureaucratic organizations cannot prevent them from poaching in their territories because their activities cannot be identified and thus declared to be off limits. Finally, the prestige which undercover men of all kinds must enjoy allows them to break rules which other bureaucrats must obey, and to operate in all areas of social activity. The result of this freedom is predictable. In many countries, security agencies have grown in a more dynamic and more disorderly fashion than the rest of the bureaucracy, and tend to have overlapping spheres of activity. Before a zoologist studies his animals, he classifies them and tries to relate them to the nearest known species. We will follow this procedure both in functional terms, which are generally applicable in all countries, and in organizational terms, which are particular to each one. The pure intelligence function. This classification covers the collection and analysis of published and unpublished information of all kinds, and because of the high degree of specialized knowledge which is often required, many different bodies can enter this field, which is the most crowded of the whole sector. Tactical military intelligence, what is the opposition doing today, may be collected by separate agencies working for the three branches of the armed forces. In traditionally seafaring nations, naval intelligence is often the largest and most developed service. Strategic information, what is the opposition planning, may be the province of separate and competing agencies run by the General Staff, the Ministry of Defense, and the Ministry in charge of Foreign Affairs. Scientific information may be collected by the administrative entity in charge of science, and also by specialized bodies in charge of particular sectors, such as atomic energy, aeronautics, and telecommunications. Economic intelligence is one of the worst areas of duplication, with demographic, energy, and agriculture authorities operating alongside the entity in charge of the economic affairs in general. Political intelligence may be handled by the Foreign Affairs Ministry openly, through the diplomatic service, and also covertly by a separate agency. The counterintelligence function. This covers the prevention of the activities listed above, and may be carried out by both generalized and specialized bodies. The military may run their own agency, and the police of each branch of the armed forces may do the same. The Ministry of the Interior will almost always have a spy-catching service, like the security service of the Home Office. In particular, bodies will have a service to protect their installations, but these rarely go beyond the ordinary police stage. From our point of view, this sector will be most important. We may, if we fail to preserve our security position, come into contact with A, the police agency, such as Special Branch in Britain or the FBI in the USA, B, the separate ministerial body, or C, the military agencies. Much of our planning and infiltration work will be indistinguishable from that, which could be carried out by a foreign intelligence service, and it will therefore enter into the territory of the counterintelligence agencies. The counter-espionage function. This is the most subtle and sophisticated of all functions. It covers the deliberate contact with opposition intelligence services in order to feed them with disinformation or to disrupt their organization. It's unlikely that more than one agency carries out this work because it requires an extremely precise control over operations. The agency may be a subsection of any of those mentioned above, but in order to function efficiently, it must be able to exercise some form of control over all competing agencies, especially over counterintelligence, which relates to counterespionage as a butcher does to a surgeon. Internal political security. This is another sensitive area from our point of view. Its specific function is to prevent exactly what we aim to do, the overthrow of the government. In many countries, there's a political police with both uniformed and covert agents, and it may be controlled by the bureaucracy of the Ministry of the Interior or by the inner political leadership, either directly or in one-party states through the party. Elsewhere, in more or less democratic regimes, the police has a political department, as in France, Italy, and West Germany, and its primary function is the surveillance of extremist groups. In military dictatorships, the territory of military intelligence often extends to this area. In some countries, the agency in charge of the physical protection of the higher leadership may run an information service as well as providing the bodyguards. Internal intelligence. This function is carried out by the information services, which are attached to the police and paramilitary forces of the state. Thus, in Italy, apart from the police, Pubblica Sicurezza, which has a political squad, the paramilitary Carabinieri has an information service, which, though primarily concerned with military counterintelligence, also operates in the internal political field. Our behavior in the midst of this bureaucratic jungle will be purely defensive, unless we have a direct line to one or the other of the security agencies. If that is the case, the security agencies concerned would provide an ideal cover for all our activities. Failing such a fortunate coincidence, we will not try to create a direct line by infiltrating any security service, because if we do so, there will be the very great danger that they will use any contact in order to infiltrate us. This is standard procedure for the security services to follow, and the elementary defensive techniques used when infiltrating the armed forces, cutouts, one-way communication, will probably fail to work in their case. In order to run a secure operation, we will follow rules which derive from the basic assumption that all information about our activities is a source of danger, as soon as it exists outside the minds of our inner group. From this, all of the standard procedures emerge. No information to be communicated except verbally. No information to be communicated except on a need-to-know basis. All communication links from inner to affiliated members be on a one-way basis. No activity to be carried out by an inner member if an outer member can do the job. These rules are simple and well known. The problem is to keep to them under the pressure of work and the emotions which it generates. The most sensitive of our activities will be the approach and persuasion of new affiliates to the coup, and the nature of the security agencies can add an extra measure of danger. In many countries, some of the security services are hidden within totally unexciting administrative bodies. Whereas in the case of the U.S. Treasury Secret Service, this reflected an administrative convenience, the fact is well known. Elsewhere, however, the department within a department system is deliberate. We may, therefore, unwittingly try to infiltrate a safe department and discover that we are dealing with a security agency. All we can do is to list some of the places where it is natural for security services to grow. Census and cartography services, central bank anti-counterfeiting agencies, post office departments, press bureaus, customs and immigration departments, and the taxation authorities. It must not be thought that our entire operation will automatically collapse if it is penetrated by a security agency. If we follow the security procedures, the chances are that only a small part of our total effort will be identified, and therefore its ultimate purpose may not be discovered. Even if it's discovered that a coup is being planned, the security agency may wait before taking any action in order to capture all the planners, and this could be too late. As soon as our teams are on the road, actually executing the coup, it will be too late for the security services to oppose us on the information side. While their fighting power will usually be unimportant as compared to the army units we have incorporated. Finally, political security agencies are necessarily sensitive to political trends, and they may decide to join the group planning a coup if they know that it is well organized and ready to seize power. Thus concludes Section 510 of Coup D'Etat by Edward Luttwak, Chapter 3, The Strategy of the Coup D'Etat. Tomorrow we continue with Section 511, Chapter 4, The Planning of the Coup D'Etat. I will see you then. Alam.